Welcome back. In this video, I would like to talk about the recycler view on a theoretical level and why we use it. Because we will use recycler views quite a bit and they are super important pretty much in any application because they allow us to use lists and list views and grid views and those kind of things. So let's look at it. First of all, Android used to use the list view and grid view classes for displaying lists. A recycler view can be thought of as a combination of a list view and grid view, so it allows us to do both. However, in a recycler view, there are features that separate your code into maintainable components, even as they enforce memory efficient design patterns. So it's a lot more efficient pretty much. So it's a better way to create lists than list view and grid view ever were. And why should we use a recycler view? Well, imagine you're creating a list view with complicated custom items, such as, for example, in Facebook, you have images and then you have text and then you have the like button, amount of likes, who posted it, and so forth. All these kind of things. They are complicated custom items, so to speak. And you create a row layout for the items and use that layout inside your adapter. Well, you inflate your item layout in getView, referencing each view with a unique ID you provided in XML to customize and add view logic. You pass that to the list view and it's ready to be drawn on the screen. Well, is it or is it not? Well, the thing is, list views and grid views only do half the job of achieving true memory efficiency. And that is something that is super important. The more complicated your individual list items become, of course, because then there's a lot going on and there's a lot to load. And if you have many images that need to be loaded, then well, this whole stuff has to be super efficient, otherwise it feels laggy, especially now with faster and faster screens in terms of the frequency they display. For example, with 120 Hertz, everything needs to be super fast. Another reason to use the recycler view is to recycle the item layout, but don't keep references to the layout children, forcing you to call find by view for every child of your item layout every time you call getView. So it's not doing that. That's what list views did. All this calling around can become processor intensive, especially for complicated layouts. And furthermore, the situation can cause your list view scrolling to become jerky and non-responsive as it tries to grab view references. So it was fine back in the day, but then things got a lot more complicated. Of course, devices got faster, but still, why not improve if it's not perfect, right? So that's what they thought when they created recycler views. Android initially provided a solution to this problem on the Android developer side with smooth scrolling via the power of the view holder pattern. And with this pattern, a class becomes an in-memory reference to all the views needed to fill your layout. You set the references once and reuse them, working around the performance hit that comes with repeatedly calling this find view by ID. And find view by ID is something that we've never used before because we just didn't need to do it. That's the beauty of Kotlin. They just got rid of this whole thing. You don't need to use it anymore. In Java, it's quite prominent and very important to use it, but well, in Kotlin, it's less important. And you can even reduce your code to where it's not even used at all. So it's pretty cool. Take note that this is an optional pattern for list view or grid view. If you're unaware of this detail, then you may wonder why your list view and grid views are so slow. Well, the thing is, we never used list views and grid views, so this is something that doesn't really bother us too much because we will use recycler views all the time. So we're not even going to start with doing list views and grid views, okay? We're going to start with recycler views straight away, so it's going to be a lot more efficient from the start, and you will see how to build those things. All right, so the arrival of the recycler view changed everything. It still uses an adapter to act as a data source. However, you have to create view holders to keep references in memory. To provide a new view, recycler view either creates a new view holder object to inflate the layout and hold those references, or it recycles one from the existing stack. So why is it called recycler view? Well, another perk of using recycler views is that they come with default animations that you don't have to create or add yourself because it requires a view holder. The recycler view knows which animation to apply to which item and adds them as required. So you can also create your own animations and apply them as needed. Now there is something called Layout Manager in recycler views, and we're going to actually use that in order to adjust our recycler view elements, so the list items in our list. So the last and most interesting component of a recycler view is its layout manager. This object positions the recycler views items and tells it when to recycle items that have transitioned off screen. And this is something that list views used to do by themselves back in the day. So you can imagine that when working with the lists, there are multiple things which are important to consider. So one of them is, for example, when you scroll, then you want to see the next list elements directly. You don't want them to load. You don't want them to take up time in order to load whatever is displayed in them. You want to see directly. It has to feel smooth and look smooth. And that is something that is achieved a lot easier with recycler views. Now, another thing is you need, of course, to free up space, memory space of elements that are not visible anymore. So if a list item is not visible anymore, it's off screen already, then at one point you need to release the memory. And you shouldn't do that directly. Maybe the user wants to scroll back, all right? So maybe he wants to see whatever he scrolled away. So it doesn't have to be done directly, but it's something that recycler views or this recycler view class and layout manager handle themselves. So it's super powerful. So the recycler view has broken out this functionality to allow for different kinds of layouts: vertical, horizontal, grid, staggered, or a very custom. So that is the cool thing. It's super powerful. You're not limited to grid or list views, but you can really go ahead and build your own layouts, and they're still going to be efficient because they will still be recycler views, right? So Layout Manager offers free choices by default. So the linear layout manager positions item to look like a standard list view. Then the grid layout manager positions items in a grid format similar to a grid view. And then we have the staggered grid layout manager, which positions items in a staggered grid format. The cool thing is you can, of course, go ahead and create your own layout managers to use with a recycler view if you want some extra customization. So these are the basics of recycler views. And I found this guide here under guides.copath.com/android/using the recycler view, which is pretty cool. So this guy created a great guide on recycler views, how they work and what you can do with it. And it's a super extended one. You can see there are a bunch of sections. So using recycler views, defining a model, notifying the adapter. So a lot of stuff. You can see he even goes to animators. And so this is an example of what you can do with a staggered grid layout. You can see, pretty cool. Of course, it really depends on the images you have and the stuff, but in the end you can see it's neither a real grid layout nor is it a list view. It's really a staggered grid, so pretty powerful stuff. And then also when it comes to animations, as you can see, the elements, they get bigger the further they are in their loading process, so to speak. Okay, so this is just one website. Of course, there are a bunch of other great list view websites. So this is also, for example, a grid view here that is used in the Google Play Store. Okay, so they also use this effect here, and you can see you can pretty much find anything here. So I would highly recommend to check that out if you want to know more about recycler views. Of course, we're going to use recycler views and we are going to use some of the features that are explained in here, but of course not everything. So that is something that I, in general, really encourage you to do. Each time that we cover something new, that you should also look into other resources to get a bigger understanding of it. Because the more different examples you can see, the better your understanding of something or a concept will become. Okay, so see you in the next video.